Today, we're going to talk about building a routine that's going to help improve your English. I'm going to speak as clearly as I can, but what I'm not going to do is slow down the speed of my English, because at the end of the day, if I do that, then you will only understand me and nobody else. So we've got to speak at the right type of speed that you will expect to hear anywhere in the world. But what you can do, if it helps, is if it's not already been done so, switch on the subtitles, and if you still don't understand me, you'll be able to change them into your native language. However, bear in mind, if you do that, if you have to do that, then you might not be at the right level yet to take the type of training that I'm going to be able to provide. In order to be able to move you on to being able to speak fluently, you need to have an intermediate level or above. Or your money would be better spent on a local teacher getting you to that level first, so you can take advantage of that of a native teacher. If you ask anybody you know, whether it be your family, friends or colleagues, they will all tell you the same thing. If you speak to them about their native language and you ask them, do you have any problems listening or speaking? They will look at you as if there's something wrong with you. At the very most, if you're lucky, they might turn around and say, well, actually, listening and speaking is really easy. It's reading. Maybe reading out aloud sounds like a robot, or they have a slight problem with their spelling. But the listening and speaking bit is going to be absolutely fine. But if you ask anybody about their second language, they will tell you that their reading and writing is fine. They can read emails, no problem. They can reply, no problem. But they have a bit of a problem when it comes to listening. Maybe it's too fast. Maybe it's the accent. Listening and speaking. Maybe the words that they want to come up with are just not there. The fluency is not there. That's where they have the problem. So whether it's the first language or the second language will give you a different set of problems. Well, why is that? Why are the problems the exact opposite? Well, the answer is quite simple. We learn our first language and our second language the opposite way around. You think about it, when you learn your first language, you are literally listening first, and then as you get to grips with it, you are speaking. It's the listening and speaking first, and slowly but surely you move on to the reading and writing, and Bob's your uncle, you've got your first language. If you want to know what Bob's your uncle means, subscribe now. And then of course, when we're looking at the second language, it's the opposite. Because we have our first language to fall back on, we can do the reading first, we can do the writing second, and then we can move on to listening and speaking. Listening to find out how these new words are supposed to sound. Speaking is our practice to make sure we can do it. Now, because with our first language, listening and speaking is the focus, that's why it's so good. And then with our second language, because the focus is reading and writing, that's why it's so good. And by the time we move on to the latter stages, that's why they are not so good. Now, the only people I know that are particularly good at reading and writing when it comes to their native language are teachers, because they've had to put the effort in. And almost the same can be said when it comes to the second language. So that's what we've got to do. We've got to turn you guys literally into teachers. Like a training program you would put for teachers, that's what we've got to do for you. And we've got to do it in the right order. So we've got to do reading, writing, listening, and speaking in the correct order. And fortunately, we don't have to do them all at the same level. So for reading, for example, and we can cheat a little bit. One of the things we can do is we can read stuff that has a lot of dialogue in it. Why? Because it's the dialogue that we are going to learn and start to use in everyday life. Books like realistic fiction. Dan Brown is a famous one. In his books, there's lots of talking, he said, she said, and this is what you're going to learn. So just 30 minutes every day, 6 days a week. Yes, you do get one day off a Sunday. That will give you 3 hours of exposure to new vocabulary, grammatical exceptions, and get the words bouncing around your head. Now, one of the advantages of realistic fiction is a lot of the authors, they don't use the same word more than once in the same paragraph or sentence. They use synonyms, and they usually use the least known one first. So when you come across a new word you've never heard of, just read a little bit further, and through context clues and everything else, you're going to find out the meaning of that new word without having to walk around with a dictionary. And every time that happens, you write it in a vocab book, because you will need that tomorrow. Now, when tomorrow comes, you've already sorted out your reading the night before. You do that for 30 minutes before you sleep every night. Now comes the writing exercise. And for this, you need a notebook. All you have to do is write a diary for 10 minutes every day. Today I did this, tomorrow I will do that. And then you take the new words from your vocab book from the night before, and you write one sentence using each new word from the vocab list. So if, for example, you learned the new word gargantuan, which means big, today you can write, today we bought a gargantuan birthday cake to celebrate Mum's birthday. Whatever. You will come up with an example. You do that for each word, you will start to remember these. And then we can move on to listening. And for that, it's quite simple. Choose something that you enjoy. Now, I wouldn't recommend movies because they're a little bit too long. And after about an hour, you'll start looking at your phone, looking out of the window, speaking to someone in the room. You're not going to be focused. But if you look for something like a TV series, something such as Friends or Suits or anything you can find of interest on Netflix, and you were to watch 30 minutes an episode 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday and Friday, that's going to give you an hour and a half a week listening exercise. And if at the beginning you find that difficult, you've got the subtitles. For the first month, you can watch the subtitles in your own language. For the second month, you can watch it in English. For the third month, no subtitles. Can you see? It's progression, slowly but surely. And last but not least, we've got speaking, and that's when you can come and speak to me. So for 3 times a week, if you're already doing Monday, Wednesday and Friday for your listening, you can do me Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday and still get your Sunday off. So that gives you 3 hours a week reading, that gives you 1 hour a week writing, that gives you 1.5 hours a week listening and 1.5 hours a week speaking. How good is that? And within 3 months, I can assure you, if you do all of this properly, you will be speaking English fluently. Well, I hope you find that of interest. Book now to avoid disappointment.